Yo guys, welcome to the video. This is Josh or Milky, and we are back finally after quite a long absence from Path of Exile. We've had to wait 3 months to come back, and we're here ready to boot off the 7 day 7 farms. And we have a contender for what is definitely going to be a part of it, as we do have the return of the Ultimatum league mechanic. One of my favorite leagues of all time. It's actually when I started streaming, when I started making YouTube videos. I love this content. Now, I don't know how much they've changed it, but if I know one thing about the past, was it was kind of the perfect blend of guaranteed rewards and that jackpot feel. And that's what I want in mechanic. You know, you want that good feel, kill a lot of mobs, get those guaranteed rewards as you go, but also have that option for the big jackpot at the end. And by the jackpot at the end, I'm not talking 1020C, I'm talking divines, I'm talking mage bloods, I'm talking mirrors. That's what you used to get from Ultimatum towards, you know, those 10th round fights, and that's not to mention if you fight the Trial Master, you've obviously got the chance at those super rare unique items like Hate Forge and all that. Now, the caveat being this time, you can actually guaranteed go to the 10th round every time, so that does imply that they're going to have to kind of scale it back a little bit, since you are going to be able to see that 10th round every single map if you've got a good enough build to do so. So I do imagine there'll be a bit of tapering on the rewards, but there is a chance to enhance the number of rounds and therefore the rewards, hopefully, which we'll talk about later. But this mechanic itself, I'll get it out of the way, has replaced Metamorph. So if you were a Metamorph fan, as I kind of was, I did it every now and again, it has been replaced by Ultimatum. So the catalysts have gone into Ultimatum, which has also given it a brand new item, which we've not had before, and it is something people have asked for a while. Kind of niche as to who would want this, but it's useful. A tainted catalyst which applies a random quality type and amount of quality to a corrupted ring, amulet, or belt. So maybe you drop a really cool corrupted item from a strong box and you're like, damn, I wish I had some quality on that. Here you go, tainted catalyst. Also, it gives you the opportunity to put quality on talismans, which could come into play, and some of them have some really cool implicit modifiers that could definitely benefit from quality and the enhancements that it gives. Obviously, this is going to require a lot of them, as there's a range of 0 to 20 on the quality, and then there's a range of all the catalysts it can choose from. So do be prepared to use a lot of these if you want to get a very good quality on a talisman or a corrupted item in general. Then we have inscribed ultimatums. Now, if you weren't fortunate enough to play Ultimatum, these was basically the end game of this mechanic. You could drop a separate instance that gives you the option to sacrifice an item. Now, that could range anywhere from 5 divination cards, as it shows here, all the way up to the best item in the game with the opportunity to mirror it. So there is a mirror ultimatum, which allowed you to mirror an item. There's a very famous thing in the PoE community where Rutu lost his staff as someone, I think Elishar DC'd whilst trying to mirror his staff. Yeah. Very cool item, very high risk, very high reward, and very valuable. So big addition to the economy, very cool and very fun mechanic. They added tons of keystones to this. Now, one of the biggest things about Ultimatum in the past, if you remember back to that league, was there were 4 things you had to do. You either had to survive, stand in circles, kill waves of enemies, or there was one more. I can't remember. I do apologize. But now you can kind of focus on the ones you want to do. You can take notable passives on the Atlas passive tree to increase the type of encounter you get. So you've got defeat waves, protect the altar, that was the other one, as you can see here, stand in stone circles, and then survive, defeat waves of enemies, all that. Now, they were only the stone circles it took quite long. It was not the most fun one to do. Survive, again, it was easy, but it took a long time. Protect the altar was whatever. Kill waves of enemies was exceptionally fast, especially since this mechanic was very much a headhunter mechanic. Spawned tons of rares, made it very, very easy. So the ability to kind of focus the ultimatums into that type of encounter is going to make it much better than it was in the past, because obviously a lot of us look back on that mechanic with rose-tinted glasses, but 50% of the ultimatums you ran into were pretty goddamn annoying to do, where they had to stand in circles or just survive for a stupid amount of time as you killed pathetic mobs as they ran towards you. So very cool choices on the Atlas tree that they've given us, as well as a big keystone. So the Grueling Gauntlet allows you to increase the number of rounds in your ultimatum by 3. Now, with the way that the rewards used to scale, this could be phenomenal for rewards, as it did seem to really ramp up as you got to the end. Towards the end, as I say, you get things like Winged Scarabs, Divine Orbs, Mage Bloods, Mirrors, You're getting really good stuff towards the end. So those 3 additional rounds might not sound like a lot, but it's 3 at the tippity top. It's 11, 12, and 13. You're not going, you're not putting them at the beginning, you're putting them at the end where the rewards are the most valuable. But you cannot find a boss encounter if you choose to take this point, and you also cannot choose the modifiers in the ultimatum as you do it, and they can get very, very dangerous. So you're going to need a good build. You're going to need a good understanding of how it works and which ones you're going for. But I think this could be a very, very fun thing to farm, and he's definitely a candidate, if not the only candidate right now, for things that I'm absolutely going to be doing an episode of 7 days, 7 farms on. So if you liked Ultimatum, do be ready for that. Make sure you subscribe, because that will probably be episode number 1. I'm going to be doing a lot of Ultimatum this league. Now, on top of that, we do, of course, have a new league mechanic. It's crazy that I'm talking about a new league, and the first thing I spoke about was Ultimatum and not the new league mechanic. But we do have a new one, and finally we got a mapping mechanic. It is obviously Affliction, and the idea here is throughout maps, you're going to find the Viridian Wildwood. And basically, when you go into this separate instance, which I hope doesn't include a load screen, you're going to be guided around by wisps. Your own wisps are going to give you light, and then there are going to be other wisps scattered around the map, whether they're wild, primal, or vivid, named nicely after our harvest seeds. Well, you're going to follow those around, pick them up, and then upon leaving the wildwood, you are going to disperse all the additional wisps that you find, these purple, yellow, and blue ones, and they're going to be inherited by the monsters within your map. So whether or not you do this at the beginning of the map or the end of the map remains to be seen. There is a lot of unknowns here. I'm going off. I'm kind of in the dark, but definitely some opportunity to experiment, and I certainly will be doing so. But as you leave the map, the effects are going to be inherited by the monsters. And for this, they don't even have to have been spawned yet. So if you think of something like a breach or a strongbox or any, you get the drill. Anything that even hasn't been spawned yet, they will inherit these properties too. And it does make them more difficult, but as you can see from the screen here, if they are primal, they will have increased rarity, wild, quantity, and if they're vivid, they will drop more currency items. But you can make it so they get all 3, which is obviously what you want to go for, and what we're going to have to experiment to find out the best way to get as many mobs as possible with all 3 of these buffs on them at any given time. And we're also going to have to see how difficult it is to kill such a mob. But these rewards to the map itself, the way to juice the map, aren't the only benefits from this mechanic. Obviously, there's tons of actual character power benefits, but we're going to stick to the currency side of things just for today. And when you meet these vendors in the map, or these masters, these new ascendancies, they all have something you can purchase from them. So we have something more for the minion players. We have like corpses that you can use for specters. I'm sure there are other benefits of these. I'm not too familiar with minions, so you'll have to forgive me on this one. I'm going to glance a bit over it, but I'm sure someone can let me know in the comments, if these are looking super strong. Then we have tinctures, which effectively replace your flask, which is a very big ask. Expecting someone to give up a flask for one of these effects, well, they better have good effects. And they look okay. This one gives you a very small version of a headhunter, gives you increased damage against enemies that are on low life, and culling strike, which is kind of anti-synergy, but sure. And then this one gives you the ability to inflict withered on enemies that are full life, and also you steal frenzy charges from enemies. So only seen 2 of them so far. Don't look crazy. Again, you're asking for a lot for someone to give up a flask slot for one of these, but hopefully there's a good reason to do so, as this is something you can purchase and then trade. So this will add something into the economy for sure, assuming they're actually used. But the big one down here at the bottom, the Wildwood Primalist, everyone's new favorite ascendancy tree, which is essentially build your own ascendancy. You're going to get 3 charm sockets, and to put in these, you're going to need, you guessed it, charms. And these charms basically have 2 affixes on them from any ascendancy within the game. Now, not all ascendancy points are going to be here. They said that some of them are too binary, too powerful, and they can't all be represented on these items. But even with that being the case, just alone with some of these that you can imagine some of the combinations. Stuff like this, stuff like Occultists Explode, you can get that. You can get Movement Speed Defensive Charge, 7% chance to take less area damage from hits. You can imagine all the combinations from the Ascendancies. You could definitely think of some very, very powerful ones. I'm not the greatest builder. I don't know all the Ascendancies off by heart, but there are definitely some good combinations. And what that means is every time you refresh this vendor and buy new charms, they could be very, very valuable. You think how much people will spend for jewels that give you the same Ascendancy from your class, well, now you can get very high rolls on this kind of thing, because it's going to be pretty difficult to get perfect ones of these, especially since they're unmodifiable. So getting the perfect ones and they stack, you know, these are going to be very, very valuable. So I imagine this Wildwood Primalist is going to be something you want to check every time you get the opportunity to see if you can get one of these items, even just to sell, if not to use yourself. Now, it certainly wasn't all buffs or additions, stuff like that. If you were a Forbidden Sanctum enjoyer, cover your ears, because it did get nerfed, and it was the nerf that we probably expected. Actually, it was a two-part nerf. They reduced the drop rate of Forbidden Tomes, which a lot of people kind of expected. They did seem to be very common, and the price going into last league, I did anticipate to be much higher than it ended up being, just due to how common they seemed to be and how easy they were to farm. So Sanctum has been reduced. We don't know by how much, so it's hard to say whether this is effective, whether it's like half, so they'll essentially double in price. But then this will be counteracted by the fact they've made them less rewarding, at least at the peak of what people were doing. If you were familiar with how people were farming these things in the later stages of their progression, when they had a completely min-max character and could run any Sanctum with these relics. So the ones that would duplicate the offers, maybe you've seen Cute Dog, dropping 8 mirrors. You know, you could do some pretty disgusting things with these relics. So they did reduce the drop rate of these, which will both make the relics more valuable, but could in turn make the Forbidden Tomes themselves less valuable, as there's less incentive to run them if you can't chain run these relics, which is what a lot of people did. Now, they are still going to be a great source of divines, awakened sextants, chaos orbs, all that currency that you would get along the way. And I think that's still going to be very important, and a lot of people are still going to be running Sanctum. I don't think they would gut it completely, as personally I didn't think it was that bad. I liked the more inflated economy, everyone making tons of divines. Yeah, things were a bit more expensive, but relatively speaking, it wasn't too bad. So if you're a Sanctum enjoyer, there's a bit to look into there as to how much these drop rates were affected, and maybe something I will look into. It's not my favorite content, but I'll definitely take a look as we move into the league itself. So huge implications on the currency side of things. Definitely going to be updating the Maxwell stuff. Definitely going to be doing the 7 day 7 farm series. I'm super excited for this league. Let me know what you guys thought about this reveal. It was probably my favorite one they've done in a while. I was super hyped when they showed the Trial Master and Ultimatum was back. I'm hyped for this league, and I will be doing a lot of content on the currency side of things, as well as on Maxwell for currency, working with Grimro and Zem. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.